Okay. We stand for the pledge. I was going to ask Mr. Zuckerman to lead us in the pledge. Mr. Joffrey, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. Mr. Nowotny, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Salonitro,
Here?
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Here.
Commissioner Adams.
Here.
Subbing for Mayor Pillow, Commissioner Sack, Commissioner Brett, and Commissioner Carr.
Here. And Commissioner Brett's on her way, and Commissioner Sack was excused, exactly. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the October 20th meeting?
So moved.
Get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Any comments from the public? Please. Linda?
We're over here tonight?
Yeah.
I'm Linda Wells, and I'm a resident of Rye, but I'm a member of the Friends of Rye Town Park. I was unable to attend the last two commission meetings, unfortunately, and just wanted to register a comment about the sculptural exhibit that was in the park. I and several people who approached me personally found the subject matter inappropriate for the park. The concept of using that venue as an exhibit area for sculpture, I think, is great. But I might suggest that we have something that's more park-related in subject matter, whether it's flora or fauna, sea aquatic animals or something like that, where you're still giving exposure to the art world, but in a more inobtrusive manner. And the scale of that one particular piece near Seaside Johnny's, I thought was outrageous.
The large one, Linda?
Yes. The flip side of that is that I think it was said that the sculptors who were using the park would not only do their installation, but they would remove the sculptures and return the park in like kind. And I was down there this morning, and it ain't restored. There are holes in the ground that are not filled with soil. There are cones shoved into them, inches deep. I'm not talking about something like, I'm talking like this. And it's a missed opportunity because very soon the ground is going to start to freeze. And what I don't know is what the arrangement was with them. Is this something that, as the user of the park, they pay the park to, and the park makes the arrangement to fill in the holes, reseed whatever needs to be done? Or are they responsible directly?
Well, they could have put back what they had removed, but we thought it would be better to just reseed that.
You can't. You have to fill soil. I mean, if you...
They have the soil, they saved the soil.
But when did the exhibit get removed?
November, a couple of weeks.
It's a safety issue. I'm going to tell you that. If I walked on the lawn near Seaside Johnny's, there were cones which kind of give you an indication that there's something going on there. The yellow tape was under the leaves, and the leaves were covering the entire area that should have been exposed for people to see. So it really needs to be addressed by whomever or however it needs to be done. But for me and a member of the Friends of the Park, it's kind of an abuse of the park rather than a use of the park. And I think there has to be more respect given to the environment that's there. I mean, people are working hard to make this place so nice, and there are literally holes in every location where there was a sculpture. There are cones there, but that's not going to keep people from tripping or shoving the cones or taking the cones. That really needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I think, sorry. Yeah.
Linda, I just have two quick comments. The first one, obviously, the board wrestled with the idea of having the sculptures there. We thought it was, a new idea, and obviously this commission is always open to new ideas. We're always open to public comment. It's unfortunate you weren't here, but regardless, I think the idea of approving, from my point of view as one commissioner, was to open up the park to something different. Try it out. Comments like yours are very, very, important. So I think as we move forward, we'll have to look at that. The second thing is,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
this is no excuse for the park being left in less than what it was, less condition than it was before. So I hope that, and I know it will be, that it'll be attended to rather quickly.
That'd be great. Yeah, I know. I was there for the meeting where you were talked about, there was a presentation about
Right.
the exhibit, but you had pictures about this big to go by, and there was a provisional approval, and then I was unable to come to the other
Yeah.
meetings.
Our
and-
intentions were good intentions.
Absolutely, no, I get that, and I understand that art is very subjective, and I really do understand that, but I think it's the same old story. People who are not happy or don't voice that.
Sure.
You hear the positive, but you don't hear the negative.
Absolutely.
So.
Thank you.
But I think it's a great idea.
Could I just actually on that point also agree with Commissioner Salanitra that this kind of feedback is very helpful, especially for something like that, like this event, which was for the first time.
Right.
And Bishop, would you make sure that those holes get filled as soon as possible?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great.
Absolutely.
And thanks for bringing this to our attention.
Yep. The other thing I just wanted to ask about is I know a couple of meetings ago there was some discussion about the duck feeding situation, and there was maybe a focus on forbidding the feeding of the animals. And as park policy, and I'm just asking if there's been any more thought given to that, because our group is more than willing to investigate a more rugged machine rather than eliminate the feeding, because in all honesty, I don't see people stopping that. It's been in practice for generations, and you could put every sign in the world out there that says don't feed the ducks, but they're going to feed them. So if we can help the situation by providing something like we had been doing, which was successful until the vandalism started. I mean, I think the public really wrapped their hands around it and said this is really a great idea, and it was a novelty for the kids, and it was a win-win, considering the alternative of what people had been doing before that. So if you're not inclined to say we're not going to feed the ducks, then I think over the winter our group can investigate things a little more. So maybe come spring we can put something in there that's worthwhile.
And what did you do with the feeding machines that you had there?
They were
just-
broken.
They were just.
They're
but-
gone.
But they're gone. There was no revenue on, no
Bishop, you need your mic.
salvage value to them
mic.
at all?
No.
Done, right?
No.
What did it cost the Friends to?
They weren't that expensive to begin with. I think they were just over $100. I mean, it wasn't
okay.
They're hard to find, actually.
Right.
But we're checking around with other parks. We've done that already, and there's some fellow out in the Midwest who builds these things that he says are like, Brinks trucks. So we're willing to make an investment if it's going to work, but we don't want to expend the effort to do more research if you're inclined to say we're going to try not to feed the ducks. So.
Please.
Yeah, I think as far as the staff of the park goes, nobody had any thoughts of not, although we agree philosophically that it's not a good idea to feed the ducks. What we did was, there's been an ongoing problem when people put domestic ducks into the pond. There's always going to be trouble because these ducks can't fly. They aren't accustomed or oriented to it, and then in the wintertime when it freezes over, they die, or people come in and they try to break the ice to get the ducks out. So what we have now are mallards and the occasional egrets or black-crowned night herons. In my mind, if we were going to start all over again, we wouldn't call it a duck pond, we'd call it a wildfowl pond, which is something that a lot of zoos and nature centers around the Northeast have, so that people understand that these are wild animals, not domestic animals. But, we aren't recommending that because of what you just said, that there's been a long history of this being a duck pond. So as long as people don't mind that they're mallards as opposed to domestic ducks, then that should work out fine.
Yeah, I think we all agree, environmentally it would be better for the animals and for the pond not to feed them at all, but that's not going to happen.
Well, you
And
got the
the
winter to
honor
research.
system doesn't work.
You have the winter. The Friends can research something
Yep.
in the winter.
So
I
we'll
don't think
take a
it's as complicated as dogs in the park. I think we should get the ducks to
Okay.
be there.
And then the last thing was, I think we have 4 definite donors for more benches. And we're going to try to get the order in before the end of the year to lock in the price, and I'll work out with Bishop and staff on delivery and going to try to postpone it till we have people on site there because they and we do not have any place to store them. So
Thank you very
I think
much.
that's it.
Thank
Lynn,
you.
I think the duck pond made the Channel 12 photo of the day this morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know if
As bad as it looks. By the way, our landscaping crew is supposed to be in there in the next week to clean out the perennials a little bit more in the pond area.
looks good.
Excellent, thank you. Other comments from the public? Okay. Oh, sorry, yep.
This is in comments.
Sorry, Russ, just introduce yourself.
Yeah, Russ Gold. This is just in response to Linda's concern about the art exhibit in the park. I agreed. Art is subjective, and I think it was a great idea that we always look for new things to draw people into the park and make it a broad-based venue. But I just don't think this is the first time that we've done this. There have been other exhibits, so I just want to make that clear. I welcome more type art exhibits in the park. I think it's a great idea. And again, unfortunately, as you said, art is subjective, and we're never going to please anybody. So I just want to say it's not the first time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Mr. Gold. Okay, we'll move to our park management. Oh, actually, sorry, hold on. Before we do that, I think, Mr. Salanitro, you've managed to
Yes,
get... yeah.
I've asked the Westchester County's consulting engineer to make a brief presentation to this council to bring us up to date on the sewer project that's going to come through Wright Town Park. Mr. Grecian from Woodard and Curran is here. Mr. Grecian, can you do that for us? I said council, I meant commission.
Word's a little wet, I apologize for that. Okay, good evening. My name is Hugh Grecian. I'm with Woodard and Curran. We're an environmental consulting firm based in White Plains. We're hired by Westchester County to come up with a solution to reroute the existing sewer, which presently goes through Town Park from Oakland Beach Avenue diagonally across your green to a small manhole near your bath. Well, actually, it's actually with a restroom slash emission building in the one corner by the wall, and then the sewer goes along the wall and out for about 200 feet, and then exit your park. I don't think everybody can see this here. I wasn't sure what the format of the meeting was, but basically, I'll just kind of move this along, and then I can show it to the audience. Your sewer comes through your park like this. This is Oakland Beach Avenue out here. This is that small building that you use for admissions over here, and there's about 200-foot length of 8-inch pipe right through here alongside the wall. There's a seawall right here that we'll be replacing with a 12-inch pipe. There are some issues with this pipe right now, some maintenance issues that the City of Rye has. The City of Rye has, from what I can understand, an informal agreement with the town to maintain that sewer going through the park. There's no easement, but they realize that it's the city sewer system, so they've always maintained it. And in the future, when we put the new 12-inch pipe in, they're going to continue to maintain that. Although with the new pipe, we don't consider there'll be very much maintenance in the future. Because we're going from an 8 to a 12, we have a positive slope going out. But one of the issues that we will have is there's an ornate stone wall at that entrance down here. And what we'll have to do is jack the pipe under that wall. And we're going to have to use whalers and dig carefully under the wall, hold it up, suspend it, and put the 12-inch pipe under that wall here. But we've met with a bunch of contractors out there. We feel that we can accomplish that and keep that wall intact. As far as the restoration, it's as you can see here, it's a grassed area now. We would obviously replace all the grass. There's one bench that would have to be temporarily removed and replaced, the memorial bench that's out there. During construction, we would put a temporary, chain link fence up, 8 foot high. You can't just use a construction fence out there. It would be, your path is running right along the entrance there, so we'd have to put an 8-foot construction fence up. We feel that it would take about a month to do the project. So hopefully, the county is actually going for authority to advertise tomorrow on the Board of Legislators for the county. So we're talking about bidding this job in the winter, hopefully an early spring or February letting, and hopefully we can be in the park, early March. That's the time frame we're talking about. It's a month-long job. We would like to get out of there by May 1st. I mean, that's the general time frame.
Does the ground have to be thawed for you to, do you have to have the ground thawed before you can be in work?
Well, this excavation is going from 4 to 10 feet deep. So generally in this area, unless you have a winter like last winter,
that's what I'm
I think it
thinking.
probably went down about 2 feet last winter.
Okay.
Your frost depth, that shouldn't be an issue. It's more of an issue when you backfill. When you backfill with frozen material, then you can't consolidate it. That's the issue. You can excavate, but it's the backfill. The later we get into March, the less of a problem that is.
And can you describe in a little more detail where this is? Is this on the Rye Beach side of the park or the Oakland Beach side of the park?
This is on the, let's see, Rye Beach, right? The Oakland
Right.
Beach is on the far side, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
This
so
is-
it's near the stairs to nowhere? Do you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Those
Yeah.
stairs, no, but there's a path at the top of the stairs, isn't there?
Okay.
You have some benches up there, yeah.
I think it's literally right from the snack bar, the North Beach
Yeah,
snack bar.
the snack
Okay.
bar.
It runs right along the wall, all the way up to the exit there.
Okay.
About the 200 feet or so.
Yes, yes,
Does the work continue onto Playland property?
yes.
Oh, you just highlighted the work
I
for the
just
park.
highlighted the
So
work
it's
with-
a larger scope of
Yeah,
project. The
yes.
project is larger.
So once it leaves your property, there's about 200 feet here.
Right.
It's about 10 lengths of pipe.
Mm-hmm.
It will go diagonally across that large parking lot, heading toward. This is Rye Beach Avenue here. I mean, this is Rye Beach. This is Redfield.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to be picking up Rye Beach sewer. We're going to pick up Redfield sewer at the end of the parking lot and bring it in front of the Playland pool.
Is the project starting at the park? Through
Yes.
the park? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, when we met with the city of Rye, since this was a problematic section they had through here, they've had to clean this out a number of times in the past. We got a little extra slope by doing this too. We talked to the county. They were, willing to pay for the upgrade here to make everybody's life easy.
And this is a storm sewer?
No, this is a sanitary
It is a
sewer.
sanitary sewer?
Yeah, what it does now is presently goes down this path. It's fairly steep and goes into the end of the bathhouse, which is now going to be the Children's Museum. The Children's Museum is kind of centrally located in there, but there's an odor problem right now.
Okay.
The waste shed up here is probably about 120 homes.
Okay.
It's all of Oakland Beach. It's a fairly decent flow going through.
Okay.
And then as we go down through, we pick up, like I said, Rye Beach, Redfield, and then off. There's also a section that's going to come in off Peck as you go down the hill on the entrance road.
Bishop, we had problems with our sanitary sewer drainage at one point, not this past summer, but the summer before.
This was the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
In fact, the City of Rye came in and, actually cleaned out that particular section of pipe because it overflowed, actually overflowed right onto the beach.
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah,
so this will
that was the
improve
problem I
that
was-
condition? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that when I brought the city engineer out there, we walked the whole system. He said, as part of this project, could you possibly replace this section? And we're actually gaining some, since we're putting in the slightly above, we're putting the new pipe slightly above the existing, we actually get some additional slope throughout the rest of the project. Because as we go into this parking lot, we're down 13, 14 feet.
Okay. Okay.
You, in the contract documents, I think we talked about this, including the Wright Town Park Commission and Wright Town and City of Rye as additional insured under the contractor's insurance requirements? Okay. Thank you. Any public questions?
That's very nice. Thank you. I appreciate you coming here tonight. And no further questions from the board. Thank you so much for coming.
Yep, and as said, as the project moves along, I'll keep Mr. Salanitro informed.
Thank you.
When it gets, once it goes to bid, once it comes in, who the contractor is, and
Excellent.
our startup time.
Wonderful.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so much.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
for your time.
Okay, now to the park management report. Mr. Geoffrey?
Well, I would have to say that we had a very successful year because we didn't operate in the red again, which means that we kept our expenses down, and with the good weather, we had our capital up. Right now, the park is closed, all aspects of the park. There are no employees there at all. So that means that the Rye City Police are the ones who are monitoring the dogs and the park in general. The landscape handyman contractors are handling any repair or maintenance, and as a recommendation, Bishop, maybe John Zicka could fill those holes, and I've seen those holes, and they do have red cones in them, which could prevent an injury, but they should be filled. We fixed the problem with the car counter. Our consultant fixed that, so Bishop now is keeping track of the cars that come in through the whole winter, just as a tool to figure out what's going on in the park as a whole. So far, there have been no problems with dogs. No problems with dogs in the park or on the beach. The on the beach dogs are over at Playland, so they're doing very well there. The other Bill, maybe you want to fill them in on the programs that you were point man on. Like
You have it in your report.
they're in the reports.
We had the Light the Night walk, which had about 2,000 people walking through the park. And then we had, what? Oh, go up there.
Yeah, I have them right here. Oops.
Yeah, the High Performance Track Club, in fact, their last session was yesterday. So that's a group of kids who have track training, Light the Night. I think that's all except for the turkey run that's going on for the City of Rye Recreation the day after Saturday after Thanksgiving. And let's see. The Rye Town Park is, as you all know, because you approved it, they are participating in the Mistletoe Magic event that goes on by the Chamber of Commerce in the City of Rye, and donated a platinum level family membership for next year. And as a result of that, we're listed in all the publicity, and I think it's another way of letting people realize what goes on at Rye Town Park. And let's see. I think most of the rest of it is self-explanatory.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
What is the ad hoc Greater Playland Working Group?
Yeah. Actually, I had reported on that briefly last session. It's a group that was formed primarily by Friends of Edith Reed Sanctuary and the Children's Museum and the Historical Society, because they're concerned about their operations are right there where Playland is, and so they were naturally wanted to be involved in what decisions were going to be made at Playland that might impact Edith Reed Sanctuary or the Children's Museum. And so they approached us from Rye Town Park last January, and over the last year there's been a series of meetings to discuss, and we've gotten updates from the county, from the representative to the county from Standard Amusements. And so the main concerns are that, the Edith Reed Sanctuary to the north and Rye Town Park to the south are parks, preserves, and a lot of the benefits of both of those institutions are protecting the environment, sustainability, and resiliency against storms. So we have a lot in common, and we hope that as things go along there, we can work cooperatively. In fact, I think the report that the county had the Biederman report actually mentioned the idea that we should try to cooperate more, with the different institutions that are all together there, because we all have beaches and we all have natural resources, and we all have, during the non-active part of the year, which is from basically the end of September through the end of April, more or less, then that can put a lot more emphasis on on the more natural history and the environmental aspects of the park. So there was a specific plan to develop a walk that would start at from the south start at Dearborn Avenue and go all the way up through Playland to Edith Reed Sanctuary. And it would be a way of encouraging more people to just get to see what goes on there. A lot of people do it already anyway, but this would just be a little bit more formal with maybe a few signs and some arrows pointing where to go. And if they ever fix the north part of the boardwalk at Playland, it would make a nice way to go right directly from the one end to the other, which is a couple miles. So if you did it as a turnaround, it would be about a 4 or 5 mile walk. So very nice.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Any questions for Bill or Fred?
Good job,
Okay,
guys.
thanks very much.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers. Financial report, Bishop.
Okay, this is primarily an update. You have numbers as of October 31st. You'll see that we included a year-end forecast. This is a preliminary year-end forecast, not to be construed as final.
Yeah, how that's my question. How confident are we?
I like to think that I forecast reasonably well, but
It's not forecasting, really. I mean, we're just talking about another 45 days before the end of the year.
yeah, and that's why I think the numbers are relatively reflective of where we should be. If you look at the bottom, you'll see that what we're talking about here is first, I want to call your attention to the revenues. These are record revenues. $1,025,000 was the prior high that we've ever seen, so we've exceeded that by about 50,000. Our expenses, on the other hand, are right now at 951. This leaves us a net of operating expenses over revenues to the tune of about $111,000. That's what we're projecting. From that, you now also have to take capital, however, so that the actual, what you would call net profit, is going to be $48,000, or roughly so. These numbers are subject to a little bit of, how can I call it, adjustment.
Should we
on
expect
the
at least $100,000 operating profit this year?
operating? Yes,
Okay.
yes. I'd feel comfortable saying that.
Good. Any questions? And we've seen these numbers for a while. I don't think it looks like they're, I'd just like to see them continue.
On this trend,
Hate the
yeah.
surprises.
So at the last meeting, we talked about the fact that our communities, Rye Town and the city of Rye, have budgeted for a contribution to the park that will not be needed in this year, and that that budgeted amount should go towards capital requirements at the park, because we all know that there are significant capital expenditures that we've not been able to include in budget for in the past, and we know that they're upcoming and things that we really need to address. Now, I spoke to the City of Rye controller about this, and from what I understand, we budget on a calendar year basis, and the budget for the park is on a year end is April. So our current budget addresses the amount that we contributed to the park last year. However, the budget that we're about to adopt also includes a contribution to the park in the same amount that the 2015 budget included. But they are prepared for you to send them the bill that you normally send them for the amount of the contribution that we've agreed to, that we budgeted for 2015.
Great.
I think we can get that invoice out tomorrow. And I'm assuming we're going to send a similar bill to the town.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Just one question I have on it just stands out a little obvious to ask. On the security salaries, we budgeted 80,000, but we spent 23,000 more than we budgeted. Is there an explanation for that?
Yeah, there's a couple of explanations. One, I think the excess crowds that we had and the exceptional weather. When we budgeted originally, remember we used weather metrics, if you will, and we had a certain number of days. We frankly had some excellent weather this season. We had very few rainy days. That created additional overtime. When we made the dog policy adjustment for the 9 a.m. or the early a.m., one of the things we had to do was we had to bring in a security guard 2 hours extra each morning to be able to screen the people and also to help distribute flyers and promote the policy. So we had some
So
extra.
we didn't bring in new employees, we just had their hours extended.
Yeah, that's
Basically,
really
the
what it
other
was.
thing is, and they did, last year, because if you look at we're $50,000 increase in expenditures, if you look overall, right? Up
Right.
from 900 to 950, basically. And again, I mean, Mr. Geoffrey and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but last year when it rained a lot, we sent people home. So we really try and make it as a variable cost as possible. And I think that explains a large part of the increase in expenditures here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Good.
Thank you.
So we like to hear sunny days. Okay, thank you, Mr. Nowotnik. Old business, the Middle Beach ramp. Oh, the unending saga of the Middle Beach ramp.
Yeah, I just included the emails here. We had Lisa Easton scheduled for Tuesday. When we rescheduled the meeting to occur on Thursday, she could not make Thursday. But in essence, what she's really saying here is that we need authorization for an additional roughly $7,000 for her to go ahead and develop alternate plans. Now, if you'll remember, the alternate plans we were talking about were to move the ramp about 75 feet from where it is toward the north, closer to the first aid station. The topography of the path drops down quite a bit. As a result, we were also going to substitute, instead of a concrete ramp, we were going to put in a prefab portable aluminum type of ramp. However, that would require some pilings and things of that nature to be able to support it. So we need the architectural services to be able to draft all of that.
Can I ask you a question, Bishop? I'm just looking at her last sentence here, and Commissioner Salonici, you're the expert in this domain, but she's saying, or should we put together schematics to have contractors price first? Help me understand what that means, and it seems like the way to go.
Yeah, I have some similar type questions, Joe.
Yep.
First of all, I don't know what is the estimate of construction cost, including the ramp? Do we have a rough idea? I mean, she mentions the Rye High School ramp around 15,000 uninstalled in that first paragraph. I mean, are we talking about a $25,000 project for Rye Beach?
No, we're still talking something in the neighborhood of about 65 to 80,000.
But that's with the booth.
With the booth.
That's the booth. Okay,
That's correct.
I'm extracting the booth because I know we did talk about the booth and we have that in the capital plan. But just the ramp itself, going now with the aluminum ramp and new footings and new pads. What is the estimate with that standalone? I'm saying.
I don't have an estimate
okay.
number there.
No, I'm just trying to gauge the next step, the appropriate next step, and I think what Joe, what you're asking, I think makes sense. If we can get a contractor to give us an estimate first,
Right.
Because normally design services are 8 to 10, sometimes 12%.
Right.
If we're talking about a $30,000 job, it's $3,000 should cover it. Most of the job is preformed, prefabricated product. A footing detail is relatively standard. I mean, she's got footing details from the monstrosity that she designed, which is a great thing if we had the 500-year flood come through. But we don't have to worry about, I mean, I don't think we're going to have to over-engineer this because we talked about making it removable so that we could anticipate, if there is an anticipation of a storm event, we can move it into safer
So
ground.
what, Commissioner?
I'm just thinking that.
What's the best way for us to move forward? Because when
we
we
should
talked about this morning, I think we had the same conversation, Bishop, and that is,
To not to exceed 7,000, I think it's a lot.
Well,
And
one,
we've
and
already
two,
spent a
yeah.
ton of money already.
it seems to me
Engineering
that
fees.
we're over-engineering this.
Well, I think we over-engineered it the first time. I think
Yeah.
we're where we need to be now, in my opinion at least. That I think something. The engineer wants 2,000, and then the architect wants 5,000. What do we spend so far in soft course with Lisa?
Roughly $6,500.
I mean,
So she wants $7,000.
for
Oh, I guess
something
it's-
less of a
right,
design.
5,000 more. Yeah. I mean, I have a question though. Generally, and I don't want to overly complicate this project because we're trying to make it simpler. But every time I hear metal ramp, I feel like that is going to be hot in the summer and potentially dangerous. Are there other materials out there that we can use that potentially that don't have that issue? I mean, that to me, that could prevent this from being useful at all and make it dangerous on some days.
The only reason for the aluminum selection was that the aluminum ramp would be portable and we could dismantle it at the end of the season and easily remove it. Certainly we could go in there with wood, we can go in there with composite materials, but I'm not so sure that we would be able to disassemble them and reassemble them each season.
Even composite materials? I mean, are they making ramps today and some sort of plastics that?
Still heavy though.
Well, the composite material is the same material that they're making decks out of now and those kinds of things, and that's really what we're talking about if we're talking about a ramp, is you're talking about deck material for the most part.
Bishop, I see out in the Hamptons at the beach, they have composite walkways that go from certain parking lots out to the beach, and some of them are ADA compliant because they help you if you're in a wheelchair or on crutches and you can't navigate steps. They go back and forth. I can't imagine that we're looking, if we went with a composite or some other type of material, that we would be looking at the same amount of money that we had originally been presented with in terms of a permanent ramp. I'm not sure if we need it to be removable. We've never had a removable ramp there. I know it would be nice, but if we can stay in budget or come in with a reasonable number, I don't know why we would need to have a removable ramp.
I think one of the reasons why it was discussed is because we saw the fury that Sandy brought us when concrete was nothing, no match for the storm, and obviously anything in its path is going to get washed away and become tumbleweed. So we thought that we'd protect our investment by making something portable. That was just a forward-thinking thing, not to say that anything that's installed and stays there, if we want to take the risk, we'll leave it there. And I think Commissioner Brett is on target with any metal is hot. I mean, you go to any kind of activity in the summer when you're going to the bleachers. I mean, it's tough to sit, tough to walk and navigate. I don't know whether the business people have invented something that is cooler to the touch and covers the aluminum rails. I don't know. It may be something that's worth discussing. And I'd be willing to do that, Joe, is to meet with Lisa and maybe formulate, a concept that is a balance between everything that the commission is trying to wrestle with in terms of making a decision. And I think if we can get something that's cool to the touch, maybe we have the answer. I don't know if something like that exists. I haven't researched it.
I think that's an excellent suggestion if you would do that, because I think the project needs some focus, and I think it's I think it's helpful to have someone from the board work with Bishop to achieve this. And,
yeah, I'd like to
Instead of being
and the other question I have is, in other words, if the aluminum, the removable cost twice what it would cost if we didn't remove it, then you might want to go with the non-removable. Just explore that as well. In other words, if we can put one in for, I don't know, for argument, $20,000 that's not removable, and the removable cost is $40,000, it may very well be that we just go with the non-removable and wait for the storm.
I mean, listen, the design that went out to bid, and we got the numbers we got, was a design that would withstand those type of storms. We know that. And does something less than that still foot the bill for us in terms of longevity? I don't know. But I know that there really wasn't anything standing in the path of Hurricane Sandy, Superstorm Sandy, that I would,
Well, that's great. With
Just
your
leave it there.
expertise, I with total confidence, your judgment, you do this on a daily basis. So if you can meet with Ms. Easton,
Well-
I think that's a good suggestion.
I think that's great.
Okay,
I mean, the
I'll do that.
only other thing I would say is that maybe we should be looking at the kind of removable dock system.
There you go. Okay.
Down at the boat basin, we have ramps
Right.
that are
Combination of both wood
Right.
and
Yeah.
metal. Okay,
So-
absolutely. I'll do that. Bishop
Thanks.
will circulate an email between myself, yourself, and Lisa, and we'll try to get out there on a sunny day. If there's any left over this year?
I mean, hopefully, you got a couple
I
left.
think we used up our quota.
Thanks very much, Commissioner Salnitro. I appreciate
Thank
that. Smoking policy. I think, Mr. Rosenberg, we're finally here to talk about
I
this.
am
We have
so
some.
happy to discuss this.
There you go.
I was not aware, and for the public, just so that you know, we brought it up a couple of months ago. I received complaints from a couple of residents in terms of what the smoking policy was, and it turns out there really isn't one, right? To me, in this day and age, and it's Bishop, first of all, thank you for providing the information by email and what's also been on a board packet. You've provided some stuff in the last few months and also this month. It's pretty evident to me. I mean, if New York City can have a smoking policy that there is no smoking in their parks, especially at the beaches, and that's a lot more people than we have at our beach, I don't see why we need to have smoking allowed in our parks. That's my take on it. Number one, it's a health hazard. Number two, people were smoking, and I witnessed it myself. People were smoking near the pavilions, which are made of wood. We don't need to take any chances there. So I don't know what the rest of the commission feels.
Do you guys have a policy in Red Brook for your parks?
I'm almost sure there's no smoking in our parks. I'm almost positive there's no smoking.
How about Rice City and Portchester? Do you?
I do not think we have a rule against smoking in the parks.
Portchester, Greg, do you know?
Not yet.
Okay. And do we have some policy now, don't we, in our park? There's are designated areas, right?
We really don't have a
So we
policy
have-
per se, but
Do we have designated areas, don't
we
we?
have designated areas. I mean, this has come up before, and we've tried to control it in a way that, satisfies both sides.
Where are the designated areas?
Typically, they're by the wall, by the wall at the back of the beach.
Okay,
Near the ramp.
right.
That you need to use to enter the beach.
If we remove the ramp, then I guess nobody will smoke.
Yeah, next to the dogs, yeah. So, well, I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I don't have a strong view one way or another. The only concern I would have is putting in place another program that people are going to disregard. And one of our problems we had with the dogs was that people flaunted our rules. I don't know if there's, so you just want to prohibit it altogether, or
I do.
can we narrow the area where people can smoke?
If New York City can prohibit smoking in every park and every beach that millions and millions of people go to, and of course people are going to, people are going to smoke here and there, and it is what it is. And if you read the information Mr. Nowotnik mentioned, it talks about here, the new law will be enforced mostly by New Yorkers themselves. We expect that New Yorkers will ask fellow people to follow the law and stop smoking. This is how the law has worked in similar places, including Chicago and Los Angeles. However, people who violate the new law could receive a $50 ticket. I don't envision us calling the Rice City Police every time somebody lights up, but we want to promote a family-friendly atmosphere, and I'm trying to.
It's a pretty congested park, so that's one reason. In season, there are a lot of people on the beach, often on busy days. So it's hard to get away from the smoke if it's bothering you, and lining them up along the back wall creates additional problems, right? It creates smoke for the people who happen to be sitting above the wall, which is a pretty common place for people to sit. We should think about where people are going to go, because it's not like we're going to prevent them from smoking. So what this will do is we'll push people into the parking lot and onto the street, probably to have a cigarette. And that's permissible. It's permissible now to smoke in a parking lot or on the street. Do we want to continue to allow smoking in the parking lot? I noticed in the New York City law that you are allowed to smoke in the parking lots. So we should think about that, whether or not that's something. But I am certainly amenable to banning smoking in the park. But I think we really should evaluate what that means, both for the staff and for where we're going to see smoking.
Bill, just come up to the
Could you
mic,
come
please.
up, please?
Well, Well, I'm completely in agreement. I think there should be no smoking. As an ex-smoker, maybe that's the way you get, but to me, it's just annoying. It's not healthful. It's secondhand smoke is bad for you, but there, we do have to at least discuss the thought of what effect would this have on pavilion rentals. I mean, I don't know if at Crawford Park when people have weddings and bat mitzvahs or whatever, do you not allow them to smoke in those? I mean, I'm not really sure what effect that might have on the income that we generate. I'm not saying we should do it, but at least we should think about it anyway. And
Of all places, people should not be smoking. It should be under the pavilions.
well, but I guess they do now. I mean, at least there's no law that says they can't. So, but I think you will have to at least address that issue and say, yeah.
Well, I tell you, as a smoker myself, I'm totally in favor of the ban. I think it's not good, and I think that I'm the one who first brought it up years ago because I was against it. As a smoker, against it. I haven't stopped smoking since I first brought it up, which is a bad thing. But yeah, I think clean beach, smoke-free beach, smoke-free park. I think Commissioner Brett, maybe the parking lot would be the last line before you enter the park. But that's a discussion point. But I'm definitely in favor of the ban in the park, and I can't worry about economics if it's the right thing to do. I mean, in my opinion, if somebody doesn't want to rent the pavilion because they want to smoke, they can go rent something else.
Well, I'm just being a devil's advocate.
No, that's fine. But
Mr. Adams, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll tell you that I had no idea as to how far a cigarette can smell from the person who's smoking as to where, being outdoors, how far it can travel. It does become an annoyance, So I'm in favor of it.
Perfect. Thank you. So I guess the only question really then is, do we retain the parking lot as a smoke zone or not?
I think the paved parking lot, not
Not the park.
the
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
extended
Yeah.
portion, if you will.
Yeah. Good. Are you happy for that?
Yes.
Okay.
if it's a policy, can we create the policy, or do we need to have like a resolution and things like that ready?
Well, I think we
We
can.
can just establish policy
I
ad hoc.
was going to suggest, if you look in the background information there's about 30 or 40 municipalities
I know, but
in
there might have
New
been a-
York State specifically
Yeah,
that have
exactly.
non-smoking regulations. Let us take a look at a few of them and cobble together
A resolution
a
or a law or
resolution.
something.
Exactly.
We don't need a public hearing on this, is what
No.
I'm trying to say.
No, so we can pass it at the next meeting.
So you
I
just.
think we can have that ready
Great.
for you for the next meeting, yeah.
Yep. Linda, please.
I think it's a hard call, but if you are going to say, for example, that smoking is allowed in a certain area, I think you need to provide adequate receptacles so we're not dodging cigarette butts. That aggravates me more than anything. So, if we had something that was tasteful, not detracting from the park where people can know where they can deposit their cigarette butts, I think that's something you should consider part and parcel with the policy.
Wonderful. That's an excellent suggestion. In
Yeah.
fact, so when you come up with the resolution for next month, Mr. Nowotnik, would you work with Mr. Bill and Fred to also come up with some suggestions about how to handle that? Yeah, those receptacles. Yep.
Right. I think right now, probably most of those cigarette butts are going in the sand, so.
Right.
It's probably
And they'll
a good
eventually
thing
end up
to-
in the water, so it's part of the clean water environment.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
It's
That's
important. There's a
Wonderful.
long-lasting
Okay.
effects.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nowotnik. Okay, and our last order. Oh, please. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have an issue for new business, well, actually, old business, new business. And I sent everybody a memo this weekend and another one yesterday.
Yep.
And basically, what the staff has done is pulled together or updated the request for qualifications we put out for Rye Town Park and add an addendum for the restaurant. The reason I'm bringing this to your attention is because we heard of Dan Biederman earlier. Dan Biederman, for those of you who don't know, has very successfully transformed Bryant Park. And he's expressed an interest in working with us here in the park. Now, I'm very conscious of the fact that my mandate here, this is my second to last meeting. I'm glad to see Mr. Zuckerman is here, and congratulations on your victory, Mr. Zuckerman. What I want to do is discuss this matter with the board this evening, get a sense of where we stand, and if there was some support here from the board for moving forward along the lines we've outlined here, I'd like whoever from the board to sit down with Mr. Zuckerman and talk through this. And if Mr. Zuckerman and his team think it's a good idea to get a head start on this, terrific. And if they're of the view it's better to wait till January, we're more than happy to do that as well. But I did want to bring it up first here to the board and see what kind of interest there was from the current board. And then, as I say, we're not going to impose anything. I will note it's a request for request for qualifications. So basically, the idea would be to see who's qualified, who's not. But let me open it up to the board. Any thoughts, comments, questions?
Well, I tell you, as one member that was on a subcommittee with the commission that was put together with Dan Panicia and the other folks that really worked hard.
Dan Tartaglia.
I'm sorry. Dan Tartaglia. Sorry, Dan. We put together a phenomenal document, and we spent hours and hours, and I think something should be done to keep that momentum, which has stopped, going forward. I haven't really digested a lot of the stuff in here. It looks like it's old. Same old information that we had before. I think it's a great idea because the concept makes a lot of sense. I don't know if is Biederman here?
Oh no, he's not here. He's not here tonight. Basically, what happened was when he expressed an interest, he came to visit the park. We had him visit the park. He brought somebody from his staff to visit the park with them. They then suggested they're still interested, and then I organized a conference call with Commissioner Brett, myself, and one other member from the Rye City Council to talk about this. I think clearly, if you're going to do anything, it's more than just renting out the restaurant, which he may want to try and look at. Then clearly you're going to need Rye City approval. I think Rye City approval to this is critical. It's obviously the park is centered in Rye City, so I wanted to make certain that that there's some support from Rye City as well. I talked with Mr. Sack, and I think Commissioner Brett, you're. Well, let me ask you what your thoughts are.
Sure. I was on the commission, not on the subcommittee that did the RFP last time, but I was on the commission when that was considered, and it was there was a lot of time invested in this project, and maybe there's a greater likelihood that we will find interest when we tie in the restaurant. With regard to the City of Rye, we're certainly interested. We've done pretty well with the public-private partnership at the golf club, where we've had a private operator come in and run the catering facilities for the last couple of years. It's been successful financially for the caterer. It's been a decent balance between the users of the golf club and the catering company, because they provided public use of that facility. So we've been successful with that. It makes sense to explore whether or not we can be successful again, especially because the restaurant on this facility is now open. That lease is up at the end of 2016 for the beginning of 2017. So this makes a lot of sense to me. This takes a really long time. We know from the last time we did this that we put an initial date for responses out there, and then we kept extending it because this park is a beautiful park, but for a company or business interested in pursuing use of that park, there are some challenges. So I think it makes a lot of sense to start doing this. We're not binding any future commission to choose any one of these potential operators. It's just a process that we've been invested in for several years. This seems like a reasonable this time to continue it, particularly because we have had some interest from Mr. Biederman, but we wouldn't want to exclude anybody else who might be interested. So I think it makes sense to start this at this time.
Mr. Adams, I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at it. We got it to you late.
Right, no, I haven't, but I would not want to handcuff the incoming supervisor.
Sure.
So that's my position on it, that's how I feel about it.
Well, just to be clear, there's no way certainly
Right.
we wouldn't want to do that
Okay.
either. Mr. Rosenberg?
I think Mr. Zuckerman wants to speak, but but before he does, I would say I echo Mr. Adams. I wouldn't want to handcuff the new administration that's coming in. That's number one. But number two, it never hurts to at least ask and let people have a look around. But, you know, I'd be curious to hear what Mr.
Well, Mr. Zuckerman's here. I wasn't sure if you'd be here tonight, this evening or not, so,
A pleasure to be here. The incoming supervisor doesn't feel handcuffed at all by your action to issue an RFQ. As Commissioner Brett pointed out, I believe that they take a long time, and I would suspect you're not going to get any solid proposals before the end of the year anyway.
no.
Holidays coming, et cetera, but at least to put it out there. The only comment I have about Mr. Biederman, though, is obviously you had discussions with him. Is he proposing to be a consultant or an operator? Because he was a consultant for the county, not an operator, when the county was doing the proposal with Standard Amusements, and even before that with SPI.
No, that's an excellent question. In fact, that's how we came across, because when he was doing the consulting for the county, he contacted me to find out, you know, would there be any interest from our side on the.
As a consultant.
Yeah, originally as a consultant, right? So that's how we first got in contact with him. But here, no, he's clearly coming as an operator. I've made it very clear, there's no consultancy fees. He's looked at it from an operating perspective. He came out with his restaurant tour.
Obviously, the next one to look at when you send out the RFQ is the Standard Amusements, and since they're operating the park next door, and they have professional park operators, so there may be other operators as well. I don't see any particular problem. You're not hamstringing the next board. In fact, you know, the city of Rye will be there. The only change will be me, I guess, and I don't see any problem. Commissioner Sack will be there, and Commissioner Brett's replacement will be there. So
we're hoping that Commissioner Brett stays, actually.
Well, we shall see. We shall see.
They were
is that a oh.
There is in fact history where you don't have to be a sitting council person to be on.
Well, obviously the member representing the Rye Neck area is not a council person, so I was under the impression that the city of Rye always appointed a council person, but if you want to stay, I certainly.
I think Matt Cunningham served as a past council person at one point.
Yeah.
Speaking as a future commissioner, I'd certainly be happy to have you stay.
Wonderful.
Thank
What we
you.
might do then I think probably what makes sense is somebody to sit down, begin to get your feedback. If you're interested in the proposal and the dates and something, I don't know if somebody from the commission would be willing to sit down with Mr. Zuckerman, maybe, I don't know, Mr. Salanija, you've been doing a lot on your plate.
I got to do the ramp. I got to do the ramp.
Mr.
I gotta do the ramp.
Mayor
What else,
Rosenberg,
ramp?
would you, or actually Commissioner Brett?
Yeah, we
That
can
would
sit
be
down.
great.
Oh, great, fantastic.
I
Would
want to
you?
stay married.
Okay, so Commissioner Brett.
You have enough
So Commissioner
volunteers.
Brett, would you and Bishop sit down with Mr. Zuckerman and go through some dates and just in terms of working it out so that that you're beginning to get your input from right away? I think that'd be terrific.
Sure. I mean, I've read the proposal, so
Wonderful.
I see what's at issue.
Good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Zuckerman. Beautiful. Okay. Any other questions, comments from the board?
Bishop, we're going to have a proposed budget for us to look at for 2016?
Yeah, we're working on it.
For January, you think? February?
Well, one of the things that we were going to ask was the question of, does the commission really want to meet in December? There really isn't that much.
Oh, let's meet.
You won't have
Wait, we didn't have cake for
We
Joe
got a
yet.
cake. Come on, Bishop. Yeah, come on.
Boy, you're really
Bishop.
blowing up the
You gotta have a
spot.
party.
Bishop, yeah, exactly. Well, the only question is we don't want to organize the right town meeting right directly after, so we can go out and have a couple.
Well,
Christmas
actually, we
drinks.
have a village board meeting that night.
Oh, you
so,
do? Is it the 15th?
We consolidate. We usually consolidate our two meetings in December into one meeting, and it
Okay.
turns out it's the 15th. But I will come to this meeting first and
then go to the other.
leave at about 6:45.
That's perfect. So, and I don't think we'll need more than 45 minutes.
January's
We
good.
will at least have a draft
Wow.
for you to look at.
Well,
Okay?
thank you.
Excellent. Okay. If there's no further questions, comments, can I get a motion to bring the meeting to an end?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Hey.
Yep.